Hey guys, hello and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I am going to attempt to make a t-shirt, like a crop top type thing. I'll put a little picture here on my inspiration or the top that I'm trying to make. It is a top that is by the brand Thoris, the label. I think it's called the Ruby top. And yeah, it retails like 85 American dollars, I think. So we are going to recreate that today using some black satin. So I've already taken my measurements and drawn out the pattern. So it's pretty straightforward, kind of just take your bust measurement and then we're going to basically double that or near enough to double it. And then you're going to measure from like the top of your bust down to the length, so you can kind of get the length that you want. When you're taking your measurements, don't forget to allow for seam allowance, and if in doubt, always add a little bit more fabric, because you can always take off but you can't add on to. So that is the plan for today. I'm going to go out to the dining room and cut my pattern, just because there's a lot more room and I need like at least 80 centimeters of length, and yeah, it's just a little bit easier out there. So I'll quickly show you how I took my measurements. So obviously without a jumper on, you basically just take from kind of under your armpit, like where the top will start, around the furthest point of your bust, so around the highest point to the other side. So for example, that's about 47 centimeters, but of course I've got a jumper and a top on underneath. So I took my measurements without my jumper on. And then you kind of want to go from the top of your bust, like kind of where you would want a top to sit. So mine is going to be about 5 centimeters from my collarbone, over again the highest point of your bust, down to where you kind of want the top to sit, roughly. We're looking at about 27 centimeters. So mine's actually 26, and I've allowed another centimeter for the seam allowance thereabouts. And then we're going to need some long, thin pieces of fabric for the tie at the back. So this is basically like a ruffle top with a backless strap kind of thing. So I've cut out my 2 pieces of fabric and I've cut out my straps. So I did 4 pieces of strap, and we're just going to sew them all together. And then yeah, I could have done the length of the fabric I was using, but I needed that bulker piece for something else, so I just used little pieces, which is kind of time consuming, but you know, it's all going to look fine when it's all sewn together. So we're just going to attach them, and this is about 200 centimeters in length. When it's all added together, it will be close enough to 200 centimeters, and that will give us an allowance for tying and things like that.
Okay, so I've just gone ahead and pinned a hem on the short length of the fabric, and we're just going to sew all the hems now.
Okay, so we have done all the seams for the short pieces, so we just made like a small seam. It doesn't have to be very big at all, it's just to make it nice and neat. So I've done that to all the sides, and now we're going to, right sides together, we are going to sew the long edges on both sides. So I've just come back over to my table and we're just laying right sides together, and like I said, we're going to be sewing along the long edge on both ends. so now that we've sewn the seams, you should end up with like a tube, which we are going to flip in the right way. And we're going to iron this, but we're going to iron it shortly once we've done the string part first. Okay, so we're going to work on the straps now. So we're going to attach all our pieces of fabric together. So what you want to do here is have one good side facing up and one good side facing down to make a right angle, and then we're going to sew on the diagonal, and you want to do that for all your pieces. So this is what you should have, probably can't really see. And then we're gonna iron this down flat. Okay, so what I'm doing is, it's probably pretty hard to see because this is black fabric, but you're just opening up the seam and just ironing that down so that it's nice and flat. So you want to work with your good side facing down, and you want to fold in one side and then the other side, so they kind of meet in the middle. And once you've done that, you can iron this if it's easier, but once you've got them facing each other, you're then going to fold both of those in like that. And I'm not going to iron mine or pin it, I'm just going to sew it, but I have started down this end, so I've just pinned one tiny little bit to get it kind of started. So that's what it's going to look like, if you can kind of see. Hopefully when I'm sewing it, it will look better, like I'll be able to explain it a bit better. Okay, so hopefully you can see this a little bit better, but bottom piece goes in, top piece goes in, and then it folds on top of itself, like so. So this is definitely the most fiddliest part. You could iron it if you wanted to, but that's going to be just as fiddly. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's what it's going to basically look like. So I'm just coming up to the last of the string now, and all I'm doing is flipping over the very end. That way when I finish sewing, it'll be a nice finished seam, and I'll run across it as well. So this is the part I'm coming up to, and I've just flipped this over, so it'll be a nice finished seam. So we're back in the dining room. We're almost finished with this top, but I just wanted a hard flat surface that I could draw on. So what we're going to do now is mark out where we want our ribbon, our string to kind of go through. So I think I'm going to do mine about 3.5 centimeters from the top and about 5 centimeters from the bottom. That's where we want our ruffles to be. So that's where the string's going to thread through and make our ruffles. So I'm just going to mark that out, and then we're going to go back to the sewing room, and we're pretty much finished. So from the 3.5 centimeters, we are doing about 1.5 centimeters, and the reason why we're doing 1.5 centimeters is because we need enough room for this to thread through, which is about 1 centimeter, maybe just over, but the bottom part is going to be thread through twice. We've got our straight lines here,
and we did 4.5 centimeters from the seam here on the bottom and 3.5 from the seam to the first line on the top, and then we did 1.5 centimeters for the second one for the casing. So now we're just going to straight stitch it right down. So just work nice and slow and just try and keep it as straight as possible. So we've done the top and you can see the casing there. So this is what your top should be looking like, and we should have 2 openings at each end, well actually technically 3 on each end. So we have a little gap here, 1 here and 1 here. So what we're going to do now is finish off this last little bit of the opening. So we're going to close up this seam, but when you do that you want to make sure that you leave a gap where the casing is for the string to be able to go through. If you're worried that you're going to sew straight over it, just put a little pin there to remind you to skip over that. So you're just going to jump over this little casing here on both ends. So we're at the opening here, so I'm just going to lift up the foot, slide it forward until we're past that opening, put the foot back down, needle, here, and go again. Okay, so we've done all the casings, the seams on the side and everything. So the last thing to do is grab a safety pin, your string, attach your safety pin to one end, and then we're just going to thread it through the top, and it's going to go through twice on the bottom. I just thought I'd quickly lay down some white sheeting so that hopefully the background's a little bit less distracting. So what we've done so far is we've run the string across the top once, and now we're working it through the bottom so that we have an armhole over here. So that's what it looks like. This is the top, this is the bottom. Okay, I'm just straightening it out at the moment. So obviously this is a bit small for an armhole, but we'll adjust that after. What we're going to do now is take the safety pin off this one and pop it on the longer piece, because we're now going to thread that through. So it will be a little bit tighter going back through the bottom, but you'll be able to make it work. Okay, what I've done is just added a little clip to this part here that I've already threaded through so we don't lose it. You can either leave the safety pin on here and use a second safety pin or whatever. I'm pretty sure you're not going to lose it anyway, but just in case. Okay, so we're just threading the last piece through now, and we're through. If you get stuck at all when threading the second string through the bottom, just if you hold where you're pulling through and where it's stuck and you give the second or the first piece a little tug, it will just kind of loosen it a little bit and you'll be able to pull through. Okay, so as you can see, we now have 2 armholes on either side. So you just want to kind of stretch it out so that you've got enough string going through both pieces. We've got some nice long pieces on the bottom, and of course this is going to be more adjustable once it's actually on you. So just keep playing around with it until you're semi-happy with what you've got, because you will adjust it when it's actually on you. But this is basically what it's looking like. Obviously it will gather more when it's actually on you, but we're gonna go try it on now.
Okay, so this is what the top looks like. And the string's long enough that you can actually cross it over at the back here as well. So you can do all different types of straps for the back. But I'm really happy with how it turned out. What do you guys think? Anyway, if you liked this tutorial on how to make this ruby top, give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below. It really helps support my channel and it also lets me know the kinds of videos you guys like to see. Bye for now, and I'll see you in the next one.